Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan on K+. It is Thursday, March 28th. These are the headlines. Uzbek President Islam Karimov's daughter and his close circle deny news of the head of state's heart attack. Experts believe the information concerning leaders' health should not be hidden from the public. The government is planning to expand the powers of local village leaders. Will more financial freedom help in rural development? President of Uzbekistan Islam Karimov suffered a massive heart attack, although according to the country's official authorities, the story was fictitious. Despite the fact that the president has yet to appear in public after the alleged stroke, his inner circle and daughter claim he is in good health. The official version also has it that the rumors of the heart attack are spread by the opposition. But as it turned out, Karimov's ailment is not that important to his opponents. Why is the head of state's health considered a state secret in Central Asia? And what happens when all of a sudden the president's illnesses are out in the open? We explore the question in our first story.
By far, the video where 75-year-old president of Uzbekistan is dancing to applause of the whole stadium on Navruz celebration is the only evidence that Islam Karimov is alive and well. On Twitter, his daughter Gulnara wrote that this dance confirms the president's good health. However, after March 19, the information that Islam Karimov has suffered a massive heart attack appeared in all headlines of Russian news websites. Uzbek opposition was the first to spread that news, allegedly provided by a reliable source. Then this news was also confirmed by the Russian news websites with a reference to a special source of information. Uzbek journalist Shahida Tliugulova, who worked for the BBC for several years and who is now in a political exile in London, doubts the information on Karimov's health problems. The only thing we know for sure is that the president is old and he may have some health problems, which, God forbid, can lead to his death. I'm informed that the doctors from Germany and Switzerland came to see him, but the key issue now, how his death will affect the whole situation in the country. The key issue of all governors of Central Asia is how Karimov's death will affect the whole situation in Uzbekistan, as no countries except Kyrgyzstan have encountered the scenario of constitutional change of power. The following presidents are called long-term politicians of Central Asia. Until his death of heart failure in 2006, 66-year-old president of Turkmenistan Saparmurat Niyazov headed the list of the most authoritarian rulers in the region, and his death turned out the only reason for resignation. Now the list depends on the governor's age and authoritarianism degree. Thus, 75-year-old Islam Karimov, who has been in power for 24 years, is on the top of the list. According to official sources, he is healthy and ready to rule for a long time, whereas unofficial sources say that he has survived several heart attacks, with the last about a week ago. He is followed by Nursultan Nazarbayev, aged 72. Being in power for 25 years, he is officially said to be in perfect health. However, according to special sources, he is seriously ill and allegedly undergoes treatment in Germany and Israel. President of Tajikistan is ranked third. Aged 60, he is considered the youngest and the healthiest of all Central Asian governors. There is no information about his possible health problems, despite the fact that he has been in power for almost 20 years. Daniil Kislov, head of news website Fergana.ru, has been watching the activity of Central Asian leaders for a long time. President of Uzbekistan seems to have a vacation somewhere in Tashkent. We don't have any information about either the current state of his health or what medicine he is taking. According to Kislov, Karimov keeps the current state of his health in secret much better than Nursultan Nazarbayev does, as the information about his treatment in Germany or Israel appears in the media much more frequently and is more of a factual report. The more authoritarian the regime is, the higher is the level of secrecy of a ruler's health, says Kislov. Considering development, Central Asian countries unfortunately stuck somewhere in the 19th century, as they are feudal states where the power is seized and the weakness of the ruler must not be made public. To curb rumors, Uzbek media spread information about Karimov's future plans. Thus, on April 15, the president of Uzbekistan is paying an official visit to Moscow. On Thursday, Uzbek news websites reported on Karimov's meeting with the head of Kazakhstan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs Idrisov in Tashkent. However, the report isn't confirmed by either video or photos of the meeting.
Information about the President Karimov's meeting with Kazakhstan's Foreign Minister Idrisov indeed sounded a lot like official denial of the Uzbek leader's sickness. Karimov's heart attack generated many rumors and discussions over the internet. Experts from Kazakhstan point out that similar situations are a common occurrence and are based on the scant information about the state of health among the leaders of authoritarian regimes.
It is understandable why do health conditions of political leaders attract so much attention, and not just towards Karimov. The same applies to the president of Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, as well as the few leaders of other countries similar to health issues of Hugo Chavez, for instance. Indeed, majority of political and economic decisions in our countries, and Uzbekistan in particular, made by the highest level, depend on one person. Based on experience of other countries, it is obvious that information of such kind shall not be concealed. It should be made public because it's very crucial for stability in the country. It's rather a matter of national security, and the public has a right to know the president's health state, since this information isn't meant for only one person. It is a matter of stable development of the state. Our country also always keeps the president's health issues in secret. Unlike the people of Uzbekistan, sometimes we receive information regarding the health check of the president. He usually undergoes a health check in Astana. However, we never receive any information regarding his health issues. We may only guess that he is most likely receiving a health treatment when he leaves for short vacations.
The government presented a bill according to which heads of the rural administrations will be given the right to form their own sources of income. However, the move was widely seen as a proactive response to the referendum held by the opposition. Independent experts believe this measure proves once again that the government is building another decorative democracy and is not planning to grant rural leaders with powers of any kind. Meanwhile, the government offered localities to influence the appointment of election of town, rural, and village district heads. About the new prospects of rural development, we turn to our next report.
Turdubastau village head Milyar Tesenov is giving the press a tour of the district he is in charge of. Reporters are shown the local stadium, soon expected to start generating income for the local budget. There is also a village club built in the 70s, but then abandoned in the 90s. We've never leased it to anyone. The club worked during the Soviet Union but was closed after the collapse. We want to resume its operation after the renovations. All these facilities could possibly constitute the backbone of the local budget, allowing the village head to manage the income and the interest of the local population. 15,000 residents of the area all have their own ideas and complaints to share. When the electricity goes off, the authorities turn it back on after a day or two following our call. All we need is a school and a road, nothing else. The kindergarten is small too. In addition, the roads are terrible everywhere. It would be nice if they have marked the pedestrian crossings. Just recently, the government has been presented a bill on local governance, which seeks to give administration heads additional powers. Local administration heads will be granted rights to come up with their own sources of income, including revenue from rental of municipal properties they are in charge of, like clubs, libraries and daycare centers. Turdubastau village head Milyar Tesenov admits that his settlement seems to have everything it needs, except for the money, that is, and the place does need quite a lot of funding for further development. The fate of the bill, which is currently being reviewed by the parliament, will be decided before April 1st.
A healthy bullock is becoming the Agriculture Ministry's new strategy in the development of animal husbandry. At the Agriculture Committee exit meeting on Wednesday, lower house parliamentarians and officials debated the issue of protecting cattle from dangerous viruses. State officials decided which principle to implement in the development of animal husbandry, accepting or adopting the experience of Western states or finding their own homegrown way.
Kazakhstan's Agriculture Ministry and MPs are working on a joint plan to improve the country's veterinary service, double the livestock population and increase the milk yield while dropping its prices. The action was prompted by a recent scandal involving sick cattle imported from Austria. Local companies want to work with us and supply us with cattle. They want to purchase good material for the improvement of our livestock population. That is why we must do everything to calculate and reduce all the risks, placing the responsibility on the veterinary services of both countries. During the latest retreat, the officials advised Almaty farmers to ensure their cows develop free-range animal husbandry and work with banks to set up a social credit line for agricultural needs. In their turn, the MPs proposed to introduce penalties for farmers who refuse to vaccinate their stock. We seek to make vaccination and cattle insurance mandatory for all farmers. On one hand, the state will allocate all the necessary funds for these purposes, but on the other, we have to make sure the stock breeders will understand their elevated responsibility. In the meantime, farmers are not really happy with the aid provided by the state or the lack thereof. Just like it happened this winter, the high interest rates are not helping matters either. All officials do is just talk for the last 20 years of the country's independence. It is hard to get a credit in a bank now, and the interest rates are too high. Moreover, you have to give a kickback to get a credit in the first place. The officials introduced their ideas through the bill on pastures, which also includes provisions for free-range animal husbandry. The proposal includes improving remote pastures with water delivery systems, as well as wind generators and solar batteries. In addition, about $2.5 million will be spent on further development of the country's veterinary services.
Meanwhile, planting season is raging in Kazakhstan region. Wheat and alfalfa were sown as far back as February 28th. Now preparations are made to plant rice, which is produced in this region for the entire country. More than 85% of the rice grown in Kazakhstan is accounted for in Kazakhstan. The process, however, is not without its difficulties. Our correspondents find out why.
Business is picking up in Aksu farm establishments since the new investor appeared. Apart from stable salaries, there are premium bonuses and social projects. That brings more youth into the rural sector. Young adults prefer the city to the village. Nevertheless, we're hiring young workers now. We're training 2 mechanic engineers and 1 agro-technologist at the expense of the farm business. We've been getting our wages on time for the past 2 years, plus bonuses. What more does a worker need? A good job and enough money to support a family. Leaders of the last year's harvesting are going to set the bar high again this year. All they need is good seeds and new harvesting equipment. There are no problems with seeds, however, purchasing new foreign equipment may be a dramatic hit on the company's budget. We're getting vigorous support from the government in the form of subsidizing water tariffs, fertilizers and seeds. The main problem is a 5% to 27% increase of customs duties on machinery equipment brought from Germany. The demand for local rice is high. Russia, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Ukraine and Belarus are among consumers. Far abroad countries are also expressing their interest. However, agrarians are concerned that their products may remain only on the local market. Rail transportation tariffs for rice have increased. According to calculations of agrarians, the transportation rose from $1,600 to $3,300 per carriage. This resulted in decreased export of rice. In 2011, around 40 tons of rice were exported abroad. Last year, the number dropped to 22,000. Kazakhstan rice is losing its positions in the markets of the consumer countries. Raising of tariffs on railway transportation led to 5 cents increase per kilo of product. This led to decrease in demand on our product. We believe it is necessary to negotiate with the Russian Federation regarding transportation of carriages both within Kazakhstan and in the Russian Federation. Taking the issue to committee on supporting local manufacturers didn't bring any results, and agrarians believe that the rice issue will not be resolved without the government involvement.
Next up on the program.
No contest. World Championship medalist Ten and Kuzin are happy with their performances. They received honored Masters of Sports titles for their medals. Art cannot be stifled. A new platform for avant-garde productions appears in Almaty on the International Day of Theatre. MPs are urged not to adopt amendments toughening punishment for slander.
The Attorney General's office does not intend to exclude slander and contempt articles from the new criminal code, for which journalists can get prison terms. The infamous amendments are supported by most of their writers, and on Wednesday, the representative of the supervisory authority said at a roundtable discussion on media legislation reform that there is no reason for their cancellation. The subject continues up next.
Members of parliament, prosecutors, representatives of public organizations and foreign experts all gathered on Wednesday in the Astana's media center to discuss the depenalization of the criminal code articles on the privacy intrusion, slander and insults. Prison terms for these offenses are proposed to be replaced with fines. At the moment, any journalist facing a choice of publishing some information about a public person, be it a politician, MP or businessman, is likely to consider certain negative repercussions and will opt not to do so, even despite actually actual public interest towards said person. In response, the General Prosecution staff say that soft punishment for slender offenses will only lead to more malicious abuse towards officials. The depenalization of slander will not bring benefits to the freedom of expression and instead will cultivate malicious attempts at citizens' dignitary harm. This contradicts the policy on the civil and political rights. It is important to note that the draft of the new criminal code is in no way supports the introduction of any sort of censorship regarding the information about officials. Foreign experts, however, say that the criminal code in its proposed form already contradicts Kazakhstan's obligations to the international community. It is simply wrong to separate regular citizens and officials and especially give the latter additional benefits in the law. On top of that, foreign guests believe the local officials should be more tolerant when it comes to criticism. Officials and the rest of citizens should not be split when dealing with penalties for defamation, and the former should not get more protection as well. Moreover, the law usually has provisions for officials to be more tolerant towards criticism, which is in fact a very important part of the civil legislation. The developers of the document say that the amendments might come into force as early as this summer if the parliament approves them. Placed on the spot, the MPs choose to hastily leave the round table, reluctantly commenting the matter. We haven't seen the code yet. We'll talk when we get it. According to human rights activists, over 20 cases of journalists persecuted for critical publications have been registered in Kazakhstan in the last 3 years. Unfortunately, it looks like the trend will continue since both MPs and officials share membership of the same ruling party.
Supreme Court and UNDP representatives in Kazakhstan continue to promote the role of mediators in resolving conflicts, which is when the dispute is settled out of court with the help of a mediator. International Human Rights Center staff spoke about the success of such intermediates working in Almaty courts.
Mediators of Kazakhstan claim to be willing to resolve disputes of any sort as long as it settles outside the court. Aida Zamanbekova spent almost 2 months in court offering the parties to resolve the case peacefully. However, there weren't many people who wanted to take her advice. Out of 62 people in disputes who went through the interview, 6 or 7 parties flatly refused. I believe that this is a very small number. When the rest of them learned about mediation, they understood, yet they chose not to resort to mediators after all. At least, they weren't so emphatic this time. The legislation on mediation was adopted in January 2011. Later in May, the oil workers went on strike in western Kazakhstan. The labor dispute lingered for 8 months. This could be prevented had the specialist been involved, says human rights defender Zhendil Dajakupov. I wrote a long article in Altynorda newspaper, which is published in the western Kazakhstan. I clearly mentioned that it is better to resort to mediators to resolve any conflict, including one when they were striking on the square. Unfortunately, we failed to reach these people. Leader of Free Trade Unions, Larisa Kharkova, is ready to become a mediator herself. She failed to defend her colleagues in litigation with employers. Therefore, Kharkova is thinking about solving the problem outside the court. If it comes to the trial, then it's too late to mediate, because here comes in the employer and the judge. The court makes a call, and there's no way to influence court's decision. Regardless of the reasons you give, the judge will make his own decision. But we all already know what it is going to be. Leader of trade unions questions the ability of mediators to solve complex labor disputes. She explains that mediators don't really know the labor laws. Besides, the judges are not immune to the administrative leverages.
The theatrical elite celebrated its professional holiday on Wednesday. To coincide with it, a new business theater was opened in Almaty. Authors of the project assure that theatergoers have not seen anything like it. But whether there is life on the Almaty stage and what does it look like today is explored in this report.
It is a check for a large amount. Can I take it all in bills of 20? They are my favorite. The idea behind opening a profitable theatre with a viable business model came to the venue's 3 co-founders after they learned about Settlers' Wealth Theatre in Islington, London. The establishment is called BT, which stands for Business Theatre, and just like its British counterpart, the new project aims to present the audience with unusual productions and latest trends, all at the cost of just $13 per ticket for a performance. It is a new concept for a theater as well as Almaty and Kazakhstan in general. We all are different people and we are here to break the stereotype that a theaters cannot be a profitable business. Erdos Sikhaev, a car spare parts dealer, prefers to play pool rather than watch plays. After a 12-hour shift, he is rather reluctant to visit theaters, museums or exhibitions. I have no time to go to theaters since I work from early morning and late evening. Given a choice, I'd go to a movie or play pool. What can a theater offer? They have the same shows all the time. On the other hand, university student Aljana Kimbek is a frequent theater goer. This time she plans to see the classical production of Hamlet and came to the box office ahead of time just to play it safe. We go to the theaters often, especially since it's affordable. Sometimes there are not enough tickets as the shows are sold out. My favorites are Carmen Sita, Gypsy Serenade, but tonight it's all about Shakespeare. Theatre critic Aliya Bopizhanova says that frequent theatre goers actually have quite a choice in the city. Despite this, there is still room for healthy competition. In Europe, there could be up to 300 theatres in a single city. For instance, if I wanted to see a musical, I'd just go to a specialty venue. But if my choice is a drama, then theatre it is. We do not have that kind of choice here. There are no private establishments here since they require a lot of money to run. Several attempts to set up private-run theatre projects in Almaty have been made already, but all failed after bombastic presentations followed by a couple of shows. On Wednesday, the founders of the new venue assured the audience their business plan envisions long-term success, both financial and creative.
Art lovers in France will get to see the work of contemporary artists from Kazakhstan. As part of the new cultural season of the Apollonia Association organized a project titled E-City Almaty, Kazakhstan. In turn, French masters will visit the Art Bat Festival in Almaty. Our reporters incidentally learned what preconditions are at times needed for a cultural revolution.
Dmitry Konstantinidis and Ekaterina Yevdokimova have only 1 week to get to know and assess Kazakhstan contemporary art. European audience knows such names as Almagul Meldibayeva, Georgy Tryakin-Bukharov and Vorobyova couple. However, the works will not be selected based on the achievements in regalia. The French guests will also meet young and beginning artists. We do not limit our idea to a specific year or a season. We want to establish creative, friendly and economic connections in order to maintain a sort of dynamics between France and Kazakhstan, between Kazakhstan and other European countries. It is still not clear how the cultural exchange will be organized. Now the French critics are interested in everything from creative works and installations to performances and actions. However, the actual art has always been influenced by the political situation in the country. Artists had the most furious reaction during political changes and events. Sometimes artists cannot express their vision for political reasons, but this gives an incentive for the most interesting works, styles and trends. No one can say whether there is a basis or preconditions for a cultural boom in Kazakhstan. Artists, however, note increasing interest to their works. We're witnessing re-emerging interest to contemporary art. The first wave was 5 years ago. We're seeing the second wave now. Meanwhile, this will be a dual exchange within contemporary art. Almaty residents will see the works of French contemporary artists on Arbat Feast in October. It should be noted that French artists never have problems with expositions. Kazakhstan artists, on the other hand, move from one exposition hall to another, rarely to art displays.
The newly minted World Championship medalists in figure skating and speed skating, Denis Ten and Denis Kuzin, were awarded the titles Honored Masters of Sport. The namesakes will also receive reputable premiums. What other awards did our heroes win is in our next and final story from a specially convened conference in Astana.
Only a few minutes till the beginning of the press conference in Alau Ice Complex of Astana. The final decorations are being installed. And here they are, the heroes of the day, or rather the past 2 weeks, Denis Ten and Denis Kuzin. The mass euphoria has slowly settled, allowing the winners of World Championships in Canada and Sochi to share their thoughts. Ice skater Kuzin confessed how he is fond of domestic ice. The ice rink in Sochi is little worse than here in Alau. Our rink has been there longer. While the figure skater 10 was sharing his feelings for soundtrack to the movie called The Artists, which he used during his performance. I was so impressed by the movie that I watched it over and over again through the 12-hour flight. I enjoyed the soundtracks in this film. That's when I decided that I'm definitely using this soundtrack for one of my programs. Meanwhile, Kazakhstan doesn't want to interfere with the international judging scandal. The American journalists filed a petition to the skating union requesting to review the results of the championship and award the golden medal to the Kazakh athlete. Agency for Sport decided not to sign the petition, yet they are ready to inform the Federation and the National Olympic Committee. Generally speaking, this is a very biased sport requiring the athlete to become tedious in order for the judges to perceive him as a leader. Currently, the silver medal in figure skating won by Dennis Ten is way beyond our league. Both athletes were awarded the title of Honored Masters of Sport. Ten was admitted to the presidential professional team of Astana, while Kuzin will be assigned a personal dressing room at Alau Ice Complex. Moreover, in April, Kuzin will be awarded $15,000 and Ten $7,000. Another $10,000 to $5,000 of bonus will be given to their coaches. In fact, their contract price is now subject to increase. We currently pay $2,500. They will receive another $2,500 if they prove their results during the Olympics this time, which makes it $5,000 total. To date, Kazakhstan's athletes won 30 licenses for the upcoming Olympic Games in Sochi. According to sports officials, the athletes could win more.
That's all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.